Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we got another Gun Gripe episode for you. And this is one that we've been putting a pretty good bit of thought in, and we always kind of go back and forth over this one. And sometimes, I don't want to say the argument's like heated or anything, but it is definitely a talking point. It's a debate. It's a talking point. And that's the gripe of what's your life worth to you? Well, what does that mean? I mean, can you put a price on a life? You know, maybe some people can or whatever, but...
Legally you can.
Legally, I guess you can. But what we're getting at here, when we say what's your life worth to you, we mean we're going to talk about people that buy like cheap guns and they kind of cheap out and kind of talk about, you know, what should that really come to? I mean, it's do you buy what you can afford and just deal with it and just that's adequate and just use what you got? Or do you spend a little more money? I mean, where is that really cheap cutoff for a good gun versus a crappy gun? I guess that's kind of what we're getting at.
There's a couple of different kind of parts to this gripe. There's the part where you buy what you can afford, and that's what you can afford. I mean, that's the bottom line.
And you train with it.
And you train with it.
Right.
And then there's the other side of things where folks will save up or whatever, or they'll go out and buy like the space rifle or whatever that they see all the guys training with and all this stuff, and they see all over social media and whatnot. And then they want to run like a red dot or something on it, and they put the absolute cheapest thing on there, and then they complain. They spend $1,000 on the rifle, and then they complain when, you know, a T1 or a T2 costs between $400 and $700, you know, for a little aim point red dot.
Right.
That would give you immense capability out to 300 yards.
Yep.
And you can leave it on all the time, stuff like that. Or like the ACOGs, you know, something that you can shoot out to 600 yards with.
Yep.
Easily. That costs over $1,000.
That's a very good point on Chad's part there, you know, mentioning a guy will spend like an investment grade amount of money on a nice, you know, he buys a nice Daniel Defense rifle or LMT or LaRue or something like that, and then turn around and put like a Walmart optic on it. So sometimes, you know, it all kind of has to, I guess, be... related to each other in some way. They've got to be somewhat linear in terms of those amounts. I mean, if you look at European shooters, a lot of European hunters, like a guy over in Germany, will spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a rifle and then drop the same amount of money on a really nice optic because he realizes, you know, the importance of having a good optic. Now, I think my part of the gripe and just the way I look at it is, and working at Moss, you know, I used to see this all the time, is people would come in and I want to buy the cheapest gun you've got. And all they're seeing is dollar signs, and they're not seeing what they're actually buying. They're not seeing like the quality behind something. And like, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to talk a guy into spending $40 more on a Makarov PM or a PA-63 or a little alloy frame gun like that or a steel frame gun or whatever over buying. I mean, and don't get me wrong, a High Point is a good entry-level gun for what it is. But, you know, I don't see a point in spending $189 on something like that when you could spend just a little bit more money and get a really decent either used gun or a surplus gun. And it's like people just don't, all they see is dollar signs and they don't see quality for dollar signs. I mean, and it's kind of like, I guess a good example would be like, so you can spend $189, you can buy a little Pinto car or whatever, but you can spend 40 more and buy... a used Honda.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I look at it. It's like, so again, like, what's your life worth to you? I guess that part of the gripe starts to become, you know, is that saving that $40 where it might make you feel well, is it really serving you well?
Sometimes that $40 makes a big difference because, I mean, some people, I mean, they, you know, I mean, when I started working, I was a low-income guy. You know, I didn't make a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, I saved up for 3 or 4 months to buy my first Glock.
Right.
You know, and I made it a point that I wanted a Glock. I already had a Makarov because I listened to his advice, and I paid like $160 for a Makarov. You know, just one little Baikals, you know, 9x18, and I bought some Hornady XTPs for that thing. That was my first carry gun.
Yep.
You know, and I felt like it was immensely better than a High Point. You know, nothing against High Point, like we said. I mean, they work. You know, they're crude as they can be, but they work. If you
have a limited amount of money to spend on a firearm, it behooves you to try your best to save up a little bit. I mean, here's the thing. Okay, are you going to buy 10 High Points, or are you going to save your money and buy something a little bit nicer? And I mean, I'd rather trust my, you know, life to a used Glock maybe something you can pick up for a reasonable amount of money. I mean, guys, there's a lot of police trade-in M&Ps out there. There's a lot of police trade-in Glock 40s. Now, granted, a lot of those guns are going to be chambered in 40 cal, but if you're not getting a gun to just shoot all the time and it's just something you need to defend yourself with, I would much rather pay $329 or $299. I've seen some of the M&P 40 cal police trade-ins. Now, they got some holster wear, and they're like $299.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how anybody could buy a High Point for $189 when you can save a little bit more money. I know it's tough. And look, guys, the last thing we would want to do in this video is make anybody feel like crap for buying a cheaper gun. We're not saying that, but the point of the video is, what's your life worth to you? I mean, yeah, you bought a $189 gun, but what are you really getting?
What was the video where we kind of talked about this subject a little while back? We did it up at Moss, where we were talking about like the price of guns kind of compared to the price of cars and
Yep.
you know, income levels and such, and what people can afford and why there's such a wide range of different firearms out there at different price points.
We mentioned in another video a similar argument, but not exactly the same argument.
Kind of on the same vein.
Another way that the argument could be kind of made there is, you know, like Barry used to say, what's better, you know, a High Point on your hip or a Glock on layaway? Now, I get that. I understand that.
Barryism.
But there is also a point to it where, you know, we oftentimes, and what we hit on in the other gripe, is that oftentimes we spend money on things that we know we dang well don't need. And I think that there's a part of, we're kind of revisiting that gripe in this, and that you have to associate the need. And I guess that really is what it comes down to, is what's your life worth to you? Well, I guess that depends. I mean, is your life worth more to you than your iPad, your computer, your video games that you spend $70 a piece on? I mean, when people start to truly break it down and figure, all right, well, I don't own a gun, I need to own a gun. And then there's these people that go, oh, well, it's just a check in the box thing. All right, here's $159, give me that High Point, and I'm gonna go home and it's gonna stay on the dresser, and I'm gonna feel like I made an effort to own a gun. So at that point, ask yourself, do you really trust your life to that gun?
We talked about this the other day. Actually, we were in a conversation about kind of our budgets and things like that, what we spend money on, and you know, you realize that you kind of spend like money on little onesie twosies, but then those little onesie twosies adds up. And you know, for some people, the onesie twosies might be going to GameStop and buying video games and stuff like that, or going out to eat a lot or whatever. My onesie twosies are like reloading dies, primers, you know, that 1 pound of powder that I caught on sale, or stopping by Adventure Outdoors and buying a couple thousand rounds of 22 on sale, or whatever. That little bit of stuff
You are
adds
absolutely
up,
right. I can't tell. So I went on Liberty Tree Collectors the other day. So here's a good example. This is exactly the kind of thing, like, you know, associating need from want and everything like that. I went on Liberty Tree Collectors, which is a website. They deal in like a lot of like just random stuff.
A lot of stuff that we love.
They've got a bunch of parts. Well, I needed a firing pin from a MAS 49 French rifle, and they happen to have some French MAS 49 parts. So I went on there and I'm adding the firing pins to my cart. I'm like, all right, I go to check out.
Yeah, $20.
And I see an Argentine cavalry saber with the scabbard and the belt and everything. I'm like, well, and I'm adding it to the cart. $400 later, there it is. So it's like it's those little things that jump out at you, and sometimes you end up spending money in places that you shouldn't. I mean, do I need that saber? Well, yeah, I do.
Well, it goes very well with the cavalry carbine.
It does. So guys, I guess the point is, you know, we all have to associate a value with certain things in our lives. I mean, some people are like, well, I don't know why you guys would buy all those guns. I have a awesome bicycle collection, or I collect stamps, or I collect, I'm a video gamer and I have every game and add-on pack and limited edition poster. I mean, so it all has to really be a thing of you associating the value with what's important to you in your life. But a firearm is the protector of your life. So that, I guess, is the big vein of this particular argument would be, you know, guys, save a little money, you know, sacrifice a little bit for a few weeks. You know you can do it. Take your lunch to work with you. Don't buy lunch. Save your penny, save your money. And just, if you're one of those people that's watching this video perhaps, and you're new to the gun world and you're like, man, I want to get a gun. And there's that apprehension of, well, if I can just get that first gun under my belt, I'll be good. Guys, I would really strongly recommend, before you go dropping that $189 on a High Point, as adequate as they are for what they are, I suppose, consider saving a little more money and picking up like a police trade-in. That would be my recommendation for like a first gun for somebody.
Police trade-in,
be like a
M&P or a
police
Glock.
trade-in M&P or a Glock. You are not going to go wrong. You're going to be very happy with that.
Some people do like just buying new guns, and there's a lot of good sales going on right now. I would much rather have a brand new Glock over just about anything else, because that's what I carry every day, and that I've carried a 19 for the longest time. I carry the 43 now. Yep. And either an M&P or Glock, just some striker-fired handgun, is about the best option for anyone. If you just need one gun for concealed carry,
Look, right
or home
now,
protection, or whatever.
Right now, Smith & Wesson's doing that $75 mail-in rebate. God, man, I mean, you can go and get a shield. I think they're like $359, but then by the time you actually realize the $75 rebate, you're paying like $279 or something for a shield, and that's head and shoulders above better than.
Hey, you can go on CDNN and buy a Remington RP9 for like $250.
So, guys, the deals are out there. You know, we've talked
about that one.
We've talked about previous, in previous videos, talked about being a savvy buyer and going out there and finding the deals and not being afraid to, really do your research and look hard. And guys, look, if you've got, $200 barking dollars in your pocket. I can't talk today. But if you got $200 barking dollars in your pocket and you can't wait to spend it, guys, take a little time to do some research. Your hard-earned money, you work hard for it. You deserve to be happy and have what you want, but you also deserve to have something that is going to serve you in the way that it needs to serve you. And if you need a firearm for protection, there's no excuse in shortchanging yourself. Don't always look at just the dollar signs. Look at the dollar signs to the value of the gun. Sometimes that extra little 40 or 50 bucks can make a huge difference in the quality of the gun that you're getting. Almost, I would consider like a Makarov PM. I hate to keep going back to that gun, but like
it's
you look
hard
at
not to.
Like an old school, hang on.
Go get it.
You look at like an old school Mac PM. Like, okay, here's a good example. All right, this is a East German Mac.
It's not exactly an inexpensive one.
No, it's not, but I did only pay about $250 for this gun.
You did.
So see, like, the quality of this pistol and the way that it's made is head and shoulders above the quality of like a High Point or a Jimenez or any of those little Saturday Night Special, $150 guns. And I tell you what, to be fair, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to hit up a bunch of shops, and I'm going to pick up every little Saturday Night Special sub $150, $180 gun I can possibly find, and we're going to take them out to the range, and we're going to put this thing to bed for once and for all. We're going to shoot them.
Shootout.
We're going to do a Saturday Night Special showdown. All right, so expect that video soon. And to be fair, I like to play devil's advocate, because if you're going to really come out there and talk about certain things, you need to know exactly what you're dealing with. And I've owned a lot of inexpensive handguns over the years, okay? Let's face it, we all have to start somewhere. So there are kind of two levels to this gripe, and one is that, save that little bit of extra money and get into something really nice like this for not a lot of extra money than what you would over a really cheap gun. Or it's like, man, no matter what, I had to scrimp and save just for that $159 to buy a High Point. Well, guys, if that's all you can buy, it's like Barry used to say, it's better than a Glock on layaway. So it is kind of a situational thing. Depends on your situation.
It is. And like basically to echo what Eric said about saving money, you can take your lunch. I kind of skip out on some of the little things that I want to buy because I don't need them. Like I've got like $200 worth of 30-06 dies in my cart right now on Brownells just because I want a neck sizer, I want this, I want that, I want one of the competition seating dies from Redding. And like, I don't need that stuff. I've got a small base set that I borrowed from him to load up a bunch of ammo for videos, and they're adequate. They work just fine, but I want to get those nicer dies, and I'm just holding back on it because I'm trying to save up because I want to buy a couple of milsurps, to add to my collection. And that's the thing. You just kind of sacrifice other things to get to where you want to be.
Yep.
And to continue on with what we talked about originally, and kind of move on with the subject, the guys who buy a nice AR or whatever, and then they drop a little POS optic on it. I wouldn't consider something like, although I like them, little Vortex Sparks, or like the little B-Dots, from Leatherwood or Hilux, they're a couple $100
Micro
optics.
Mag B-Dot, or
even like the Primary Arms stuff. They're cheaper optics, they're imported, they're not bad for what they are, but personally, I would not trust my life to that thing. I would not trust my rifle riding around in my truck with me all the time or whatever. And, when I want to pull it out and I need to use it, Murphy's Law will take over, you
Yep.
know, and I'd much rather trust my life to an ACOG that's always on, or like an aim point. I mean, any of these things can fail, but they've got a much lower failure rate across the board.
And an excellent warranty.
Well,
and to be fair, Vortex's warranty is pretty dang good. They'll replace it.
It is, but I'm not going to put a spark on a gun that I want to defend my life with. Now, if that's what you can afford, if you say you bought an AR on sale, okay, for like $400 or whatever, which I've seen them going for nowadays, and you drop a B-Dot or like a Vortex or something like that on there, I'm sure that it'll do just fine, but the battery life on those things, you can't leave them on all the time because they will die. My Spark has died on me several times because I've just forgotten to leave it, or I've forgotten to turn it off, and a few days later the battery's dead.
Yeah.
They don't have like the 50,000 hour battery life and the technology that the Aimpoints have, and that's just frankly the bottom line.
And it is the bottom line. And to be fair, I've got an MRO on the bench right now. That's sick. It's not working.
Well,
so
that was one of the first gen models.
It is a first gen model, but some of the more expensive optics, they're nice, and yes, you are going to probably you're basically buying some reliability there because you are getting a really good, well engineered piece of equipment.
But also something
just like
that's been
anything else,
used.
you can have a lemon. Any company can make a lemon, and I can tell you, I've had a couple of issues with even some of the bigger guys, but. What really separates the men from the boys there is that a lot of the more expensive optics manufacturers have an excellent warranty, really fast turnaround, excellent customer service. They will beg to take care of you, and that's what separates the men from the boys there. I mean, if you buy a BSA or a little bitty Tapsco
or something like that,
you
no
probably,
offense, because I had BSAs, I had Truglows, I had Barskas. I put a Barska scope that I paid like $120 for on my on one of my bolt actions at one point, and it had like mil-dot reticle and all this stuff, and I thought it was the coolest thing because it was like tactical, and while it worked just fine, it's still it's not an optic that I would really trust my life to, and that's the whole idea of that. When you're talking about a life and liberty gun, you're talking about a gun that you want to leave by the bedside, that you can defend your home with, you defend your family with, you can take on the road with you, you can have it as a truck gun, just in case anything crazy goes on. That you never know.
Agreed.
But I want to be able to pull that rifle out and know that it's going to work.
And it does depend. I mean, here's a good example, all right? This is a Ruger M77 Mark II all-weather. You guys have seen this gun probably, no telling how many times I've talked about this silly gun. This is the first gun that I ever bought with my own money. Okay, and it's got a BSA Deer Hunter. It's a little 3 to 9 by 50. Nothing fancy at all. This is not an expensive optic, but all the times that I've thought about, well, I'll upgrade this optic. Why? It works.
It does.
It holds a zero. It doesn't fog up. It's reasonably clear. It gathers light pretty well. But I guarantee you, this optic wasn't over $150 when it was probably not even that much. It was probably $99.
Yep.
And it's sitting in a good pair of rings and everything. So, it really depends. It is a situational type thing. It depends on your individual situation and how hardcore you're going to ride that particular gun. If it's a gun that, you're like Chad and it's getting banged around in the truck every day and you're shooting it, 200, 300 rounds a week, you probably want to, upgrade to a little bit better optic, better hardware. I mean, anti-rotational and anti-walk pin sets. Those things start to become a little bit more important when you've got guns that are really getting into a higher round count, something that you're just really riding your guns hard and you want to bomb-proof everything. Things like the Geisley gas blocks where you're pinning everything in place. I mean, those kind of things can really start to have an effect on the performance of the gun over time. But if you're a weekend warrior who just wants to go shoot with the buds and you're gonna buy a 60-round little pack of ammo from Federal and go shoot every other week or maybe once a month or something, then some of the cheaper optics, they might work for a while for you,
I've got a perfect example. My brother is a perfect example of this because we built him a rifle for Christmas, and it was just a basic AR 16-inch carbine, actually one of the ones we built in the video,
Yeah.
But I dropped him a little Vortex PST on there, one of ours that we had laying around, and put a little mount on it and everything for him. And
perfectly
fine.
fine.
That's just a rifle that he likes to have fun with and stuff, and he's kind of like upgrading it, kind of like I did with one of my guns. And it's a very reliable firearm, but he wants to get like an Aimpoint T1 or a T2 or something. He's looking for one used because he wants to kind of turn that rifle into a go-to rifle. Now, there are go-to rifles in my safe, and there are fun rifles in my safe. I mean, so I've got some pretty cheap optics on some of my guns, or no optics at all, but they're not meant for defending my house or myself or my family or whatever. I've got other guns for that purpose. And really, if you start buying guns for self-defense, really, I mean, a pistol, a rifle, and a shotgun like we've talked about before, just good, high-quality guns, you know, if you have that trifecta, you're pretty much set.
Yep.
You know, and if you just get into a little bit higher quality piece, just save your money and just bite the bullet and get what you need, then you're good to go. And then you can work on the fun stuff.
Let me talk about a little bit more about finances too. So, you know, and we're trying to help people with these videos, you know, and I get it. You might be a guy watching this video and you're 16, 17 years old and you just can't wait to buy your first gun and you're itching and you're busting at the seams. And look, some of the best advice I can give you to help you save money and everything. And believe me, I get it. You know, I've been in a situation before where every dollar I make has to go towards bills and taking care of my family and doing things. I get it. I know how hard it can be to set aside money for your gun budget. A good friend of mine told me something one time that kind of stuck with me. And he said that if you walk around in your house and you just look at something that's just sitting somewhere in your house and it's there for a year and you haven't touched it, get rid of it. You know what I mean? And that's a piece of advice that I've tried to hold true to. I mean, like, you know, over time, as you're a collector and you end up getting more guns, you basically end up with guns that you don't particularly need, you just want to have them. And sometimes I'll go through my collection and I'll go, yeah, I haven't touched that gun in like 3 years. Do I really need it? You know, consider liquidating some parts of your collection in order to fund other projects. And that's a common thing that people will do too. I can't tell you how many times I've walked through my garage before and looked at a mountain bike that, you know, my kid bought 2 years ago that nobody touches it.
And you certainly don't touch it.
Well, no, I'm not a mountain bike kind of guy. But the thing is, you know, how many things laying around are worth money that you can flock and sell and gather you up some money to help with some of these purchases. And the stuff that you don't use and you probably won't miss it.
I sold a bunch of like video game stuff on eBay a long time ago, and
all
I bought
paintball equipment.
And I sold some paintball equipment. I bought my first shotgun, which was that it was that Browning BPS. You know, and it was that tactical model I bought at Moss. I paid $340 for that gun.
Best $340 you ever spent.
And I was going up there to buy a Remington 870, just like one of the basic models and all. And Eric talked me into buying that one. It was a little bit more money. I'm like, all right, I'll buy it. You know, and Michelle gave me a little bit of a deal on it. But I sold some stuff that I really didn't want or need or whatever the case was, and I bought that gun. So I liquidated some stuff I didn't really need to get something that I felt was more important to have at the time.
I'm telling you, man. You guys remember Pogs?
Oh, good
Anybody
God.
remember Pogs?
Oh.
Yeah. So I had at one, and I'm good at admitting, I'm probably going to regret saying this on film. I had a humongous Pog collection, and you know I was into it when I was younger and everything. I used to play with buds and everything. God. But at one point, I sold my Pog collection on eBay, and I got a pretty dang penny for it. You know, that stuff's kind of collectible. Dude. Some of the rarer ones and everything. But anyway, and believe it or not, I've also got one of the largest Mars Attacks card collections. I guarantee I have all the Mars Attacks cards.
Somebody's going to hear them like, I want to buy it now.
Exactly. But the thing is, you know, so one day if I decide, oh, well, I want to flip this for something else, you know, I sell my Mars Attacks card collection on eBay and then turn around and buy a gun or something. So it just depends, guys. I mean, the point I'm making with that is there's places to save money. You just have to make little sacrifices. And sometimes you just have to get it in your mind that that's what you want and that's what you want to go for. And that's different for every person. That process is a different process. You know, like when I used to work at Moss, you know, just talking to people like, well, how can I help you? What do you need? And they end up saying, well, I want to buy a gun. Okay, well, what do you want? Well, I want the cheapest gun you got. Well, that's not necessarily a dollar figure specific thing. I mean, cheap and a good value for the money are two different things, and that is the point we want to make in this video, whether it be guns, optics, accessories, heck, even ammunition.
Yep.
Sometimes, you know, a good ammo deal, you're thinking, wow, that's a great deal. And yes, the dollar figure looks great, but when you start shooting ammo, you realize, man, this stuff isn't good at all. And
I bought some ammo from Sportsman's Guide. Not to throw Sportsman's Guide under the bus, but this is when we just started shooting pretty much together, and I built my first AR, and I wanted to get some ammo to be able to shoot the gun with.
Yeah.
And I bought 500 rounds of like XM193, you know, which is basically seconds of military ammo, and it was Lake City stuff. it had ding cases and all that kind of mess. But I had one of those rounds of ammunition was undercharged or something along those lines, or didn't have any powder in. I got a bullet stuck in my bore, and I was like, man, what is that? That's weird, you know. Luckily, I was smart enough not to fire another shot and actually check the gun, you know, at the time. And checked it out, and I was in a hurry and I was being dumb at the range, and I ruined the barrel by sticking a steel cleaning rod down the bore and knocking that bullet out. Well, the cleaning rod swaged on the bullet and then scratched my bore, and I ruined basically a brand new barrel. And I mean, it only had a few hundred rounds through it. And it's one of those things where, you know, I bought that ammo because it was cheap. It was
cheap
what you pay
for.
But you do get what you pay for, and you just got to be mindful of that. Personally, nowadays, I buy like the Lithuanian surplus stuff, new production, M855 ball, and I've never had a single problem with that ammo. Not to say you won't, because things happen, but...
Yep. And I'll tell you another recent observation we made about ammo is, you know, I've got a bunch of that Greek M2 ball laying around.
Man, yeah.
And it's great ammo, it's functional, and it comes on the M1 Garand chargers, which is great if you own a Garand because you can just pull it out of the dang crate and shoot it.
Yep.
But the stuff is not accurate at all. M2 ball is woefully inaccurate. And then he went home and loaded up some like 168s on a, you know, decent charger like 4064.
On that Greek brass.
On the Greek brass, and we were shooting excellent, like 1-inch groups with his 03 the other day, so at 100 yards.
Yeah.
So sometimes, you know, not to go off on different tangents, because I know this video is getting a little bit long. We always tend to kind of jump around. But guys, the point of the video is, you know, always consider the totality of the decision you're about to make. Don't look at just dollar signs. Look at what you're getting. Don't be fooled by a cheap price, because a lot of times you're getting exactly what you're paying for. If you're going to get what you're paying for, you might as well know what you're getting. Like, I know the amount of work and effort that it took to build this pistol versus, and I'm not trying to talk bad about High Point or any of the cheaper guns, but this gun is worth, in my mind, 5 times as much as one of those. I mean, there are actually Makarov PM variants that bring $1,000 depending on their rarity. So, guys, keep that in mind. Don't overlook the used counter. Don't overlook military surplus pistols. If you're trying to, you know, save some money and you don't want to spend a ton or you don't have a ton, keep that in mind. So I guess that's really the point of this video. So what's your life worth to you? You know, I guess it comes down to needs.
When I think about, like, what's my life worth, I mean, like when I first got started collecting guns and stuff and getting things for self-defense, like I said, I bought a Makarov first off because it was a military gun. Okay, so it was used all around the world by various militaries and police agencies and such as that. And I'm like, well, if they can trust their life to it, so can I.
That's a good point.
Same thing with like Glocks and M&Ps that police and military use. Like the new SIG that the Army is going to be using.
Yep.
You know, I would trust my life to that easily. But would I trust my life to something like a High Point? Probably not at this point. But if it was the only thing I could afford, sure, as long as I made sure that it worked. And that's one of the big things, too, is to make sure the guns function.
That's right.
AR-15s, you know, Remington 870s, Mossberg 590s.
Yep. Doesn't matter what you buy, make sure you're proficient with it.
For sure. But, you know, I look at what police and military use and what has had a good track record for years and years and years. And that's what I base a lot of my decisions off of when I'm thinking about self-defense pieces.
Agreed.
You know, and, you know, like Eric said, to echo again, look around your house. And if you see stuff that you don't use, it's like, well, let's see, what's my life worth to me? Is it worth having that thing right there that I haven't used in a year? Nope.
Sell it.
Bye.
And get something to defend yourself.
Get it out of here.
In my mind, is an excellent point. Guys, thank you for watching today's video. I know this was kind of long. I know a lot of you guys treat these videos almost like kind of a podcast. I've gotten numerous comments from you guys where they say, yeah, I listen to you when I'm on the way to work or something. I just kind of play you over on my radio or whatever. Or some people, you know, listen to us blabbing while they're working on their guns.
They listen to us because they don't want to look at us.
Yeah, exactly. we got a face for radio. Huh? But anyway, we do appreciate the support. We appreciate you guys watching the videos and supporting ventures like ManCans. That means a lot to me and my family and to us as a channel. And guys, thank you very much. We got many more videos on the way. I know this one was long, but I appreciate you hearing us out. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Take it easy, guys.